Great, we got quorum here early too. All right, Austin. All right. Mic is on. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Austin. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our August PRNG board meeting. Going to call the meeting to order at 9 o'clock exactly. So thank you all. Welcome, and we also want to welcome Councilman Eck, who'll be on our agenda for later today, this morning. First up on the agenda is consider allowing remote participation. We are all present. Yep, you don't need none needed. Okay. Second item is the adoption of today's agenda as published. Take a motion to adopt as published. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All right. Motion passed. Next up is adoption of the previous meeting minutes that Austin has distributed from the July 14th, 2026 PRNG meeting. Any questions, feedback? I guess the motion is to adopt the meeting minutes as published. All in favor?
Are you making that motion?
I make a motion to making a motion to adopt the meeting minutes from July 14th, 2026. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Next up, we have public comment, and I know this week we have a new process.
We do, but no one has signed up, so you're good to move on.
Okay, so we will move on, moving quickly through the agenda. First up is our presentation, public and private partnerships, and we have Councilman Eck here to present that to us.
Tom, I'm pulling it up right now. Give me 1 second.
Great. Thank you, Board. I really appreciate the time that you're taking out to hear a proposal that I've want to really throw out for the Board's consideration. And as we bring it up, there we go. I just kind of cut to the chase. One of the things I've noticed since being on the board since December is the great potential that Marvin has to build public and private partnerships. I think it's a very wealthy town, to be quite frank, and a very generous area. And I think there are a lot of opportunities that we can use to tap into the generosity and the willingness of individuals and companies to contribute to the improvement of Marvin. And what I was thinking is that it would be a great place to begin to kind of tap into that potential, to work with the planning board on setting up some kind of a more formalized public-private partnership process where we could tap into like I said, the individuals and companies in and around Marvin to improve Marvin. And the Parks and Recreation Board looked like it was the most natural place for that because that's the kind of place where I think there'd be the most interest from the public in contributing to improving Marvin. So let me just kind of go through here. And the reason why I wanted to do that is obviously it helps keep our tax base down, and it also provides an opportunity for the people who care most about a project to contribute to it. So whether it's medians, improvements, or I'll go to the next slide, roundabouts or park infrastructure, I think it'd be a great opportunity for folks to contribute. I think what we really need is a way, a more, at least in my mind, a more formalized way of doing it, because we'll have grants and then we'll go around and we'll do interlocals and things like that, but really not tapping into the residents directly or into the companies. And I think if we had a more centralized function, like maybe, and I was going to say it, like a 501c3 ultimately, that could establish the relationships with the companies and the individuals, and then prioritize specific projects for that public-private partnerships.
I was going to throw in and just to kind of add to what Tom said, I think many of us have had children that have come up through Marvin Ridge High School and so forth, and one of the things that we've always seen there, everybody has their kids in one activity or another. But I remember when my kids were doing it and doing cheerleading and theater, you had a vested interest of people, but not only do they look to give their own money, but many of them are corporate executives, that are looking for beneficial relationships with, you know, their local governments and things like that. So, you know, I think in some ways, if any of you folks have had experiences with the PTA or the Booster Club or things like that, those are some of the skills and capabilities that, you know, we think might also help translate, you know, to helping to make Marvin a better place as well.
And I'll give you another example too, and I'm not saying that this is necessarily true, but let's just say ball fields. You know, if we do a survey of all the residents in Marvin, most of the residents will say that ball fields is not a priority. But it's a big priority for a smaller percentage of folks. And I personally think we'd benefit from it. And I'm thinking this would be an opportunity to, you know, for those folks that really want, let's say, to have ball fields, to, you know, leverage their passion by, you know, reaching out to other folks who may be interested in, you know, contributing to creating them. So I think long way of saying, I think it fills a void that may not necessarily be, you know, addressed by tax dollars.
Yeah, and we may talk a little bit more about this, but, you know, we've been discussing the sport park and something.
Fitness, please? Okay.
Fitness place and
Right,
stuff.
pickleball court
But,
or something like that.
you know, if you get a chance, you might go back to our meeting yesterday, and we did have some discussion about that, and I'll share more about that later. But one of the things that, you know, you come to realize over time is that when opportunities present themselves, you have to be in position oftentimes, especially when you have grants that have matching things, you know, these type of things. If you have a planned infrastructure in place where you know you have different areas that you can tap and things like that, it's a lot easier to react and respond to opportunities, knowing that you have, you know, this underlying structure in place too. So part of this might be helping to kind of build that infrastructure so that when we do have opportunities, we're better able to take advantage of them.
Right, yeah, locked and loaded for getting those grants.
So I was going to say, the grants has really been a big, driver for so much of what we've had in our community already. And I don't know, is some of the public grants we're receiving, are they allowed to have a matching grant from a corporate donor, or does it always have to come from the municipality too? Do we know that? Because,
Jill, do you have any feedback on that? You know,
Yeah, as long as the village commits to a match, they don't care where we actually get it. So in fact, there are times, for instance, with Part F, where we received a $500,000 grant. We had to match it $500,000. We actually matched it $250,000 because we received a grant to cover the other $250,000 of our match obligations. So that's totally acceptable to most grant agencies, yeah.
and that's kind of stacking grants and so forth. But I think the question was also coming from private resources. Are those typically acceptable, you know, to help with matches and things like that as well?
I believe so. We'd always have to check the fine print of any grant that we're agreeing to receive. But again, I think the grant agency only cares that we come to the table with our matching portion. I don't know that they care as much about where that matching portion comes from, whether it's private, corporate, or a village-funded payment through our own, you know, taxes or revenue sources.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions before I move on a little bit? So kind of moving on to the vision thing here, I think I think there's a great opportunity there. And then I think the next question is, well, how would we go about operationalizing that and realizing a centralized way of obtaining commitments for, you know, improvements? And I think the way to do that, and this is what I've seen, like in Charlotte, for example, they set up a 501c3 like foundation that is the hub for those grants. And that's one of the things I think ultimately the Village of Marvin could do, but you know, we got to walk before you run, is like kind of get an idea of where we'd be able to, you know, tap into those resources and those matching funds from you know, Marvin residents or adjoining companies and stuff like that. So that's kind of the way I see it shaking out. And the reason, again, why I'm coming to, you know, explain my vision thing to the board is I think it would sit here and I'd appreciate, as a councilman, I would definitely appreciate your feedback on it, but I also think it would be a good thing for the Parks Board to consider exploring and carrying the water on ultimately. So, any questions?
Austin, is it appropriate now to then questions? Is there anything else on the presentation? 'Cause I know we wanted to
It's all kind of in there. But it's in, like, as far as like the next steps, consider, basically, I think it would be helpful to have a like sort of an exploratory committee to see if anything I'm saying makes any sense at all. And if it doesn't, I'm perfectly happy to say thank you for your efforts. But, like I said, I think it presents a unique opportunity, or I think Marvin is in a unique situation where we can really, do some of the stuff that isn't a priority for everyone, but is a big priority for some.
And I don't know that it's specifically this board and its members, the ones eventually driving it. It's just to what extent it, almost kind of like Marsh kind of came out, a need that was seen in the community. And it kind of grew out of that way for, environmental type, concerns and things like that, and wildlife and those things. Whereas this might be a little bit different, but I can say that my experience has been over the years that I think I saw pickleball courts on there, and we've heard that before. And we had one gentleman, actually send us an email and say, "Listen, I'd be willing to pony up $4,000, if it, thought." And once you think that there's one person like that in Marvin, then all of a sudden you think there may be 10 people like that, or that want to, and that's just one example. But yeah, I think what Tom's talking about is more, having that discussion to see if it seems something relevant. And we would even then, just through talking about it, you might find someone in the community watches one of our meetings and then says, "You know what, yeah, I'd be interested in doing that." Because we've also had, one of the things Marvin doesn't have, and I mentioned this last night, we were talking about our land acquisition fund, and, one thing Marvin doesn't have is its own little league, soccer, athletics type things. And we have an issue where we don't have a whole lot of land left for that and so forth. But if the opportunity were to be available for us, you want to be ready for that opportunity with real estate or things like that. Maybe there's a piece of property between us and Weddington or us and Waxhaw where interested people might not want to go all the way to WCWAA or Waxhaw Athletic Association. Marvin just won 8 state championships, but we don't have our own youth leagues by and large, really, because we don't have the places to do them. So I think you may find that as we investigate this, we may see, core folks within the community kind of come together. It might be made up of coaches and things like that, that have an interest.
So, go ahead, Austin. So, question, can we take questions now? Okay, well, feedback from anyone. I've got a few, but I'll let you all speak.
I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about the legal setup of it, looking at this last slide, and the interface between this board and whatever board is created, because they're not one and the same. We're just an advisory board.
Right.
So, we can say, yeah, we're in favor of exploring this, but everything we do goes back to council. So clearly I can see, independence from the village with its own board and bylaws. What does that look like, and how does it interface with us here?
Yeah, I'd say ultimately it would be, the dream thing would be an independent 501c3 that would be raising its own money and getting its own contributors. That I think that's probably a little ways down the road. It may not be as far as it seems to be, but from a legal standpoint, I would see that as being like an independent foundation that would ultimately make the matching grants. The money would come in and out of that foundation, as opposed to coming in.
So that would be a money-holding foundation, and then with regard to how that money gets dispersed, that then is up to recommendations of this board and approving of
Or their
council.
board,
Because
I think that
obviously,
Yes.
somebody has to say, yes, we want this in our
Well,
community.
I think the dispersal actually, because if it's going to be independent, the dispersals would have to come from the foundation.
Well, yeah, but
They'd have to make the decision, but I think they would go.
they can't just say, oh, we're going to build a soccer field here if council doesn't want a soccer field there.
Right.
So
Right.
there has to be some sort of interaction, obviously, and I'm not asking for like the exact details because obviously the document hasn't been drafted. I'm just trying to get a feel for what that interaction is. I mean, the foundation holds the money. Council has to approve the project, I assume.
Or the council would go to the foundation, or Parks would go to the foundation saying, hey, we have
Right.
a pickleball court or something that we're thinking about. Foundation, would you, is that a priority for you? Can you,
Right.
can you match our grants?
I would also expect, I mean, with any 501(c), you have to have a mission, right? And so I feel like some of this might sound a little broad right now when I hear mixing of the roundabouts and roads with, something such as a park or a greenway. So there's some, maybe that's something that we'll do as exploratory, because if it's a foundation, as you're raising funds, there's two different expectations when someone is contributing to traffic, mediation versus, the wildlife, the things that.
And it's a little of a chicken and the egg thing. It's like, okay, well, so what's your mission? And your mission is kind of I think, a little bit determined on where you get the money, where the money is.
Also,
But is the mission then to support, to augment Marvin? I guess that's what I'm kind of hearing, this is to augment the taxpayers', deficit or whatever, I'm not saying deficit, but what we're saying is, this is where we can't meet the needs of the community, but that's not a mission to me, that's just a funding source, that's.
well, I think the roundabouts and medians is just the landscaping
It's just the
beautification of them.
landscape.
Okay, I'm
It's not
sorry,
actually
I
the
heard, okay,
management.
thank you.
Yeah,
for
I
clarifying.
noticed
heard-
that this morning. I was looking at it, like, it's kind of a lightning rod. It's like, they're just talking about the
Okay,
landscape.
That makes sense, where we found, where we're tied back to.
Well, and any nonprofit foundation has the ability to restrict gifts. So if a donor is very passionate about bringing pickleball to Marvin, they could grant a substantial amount of money and specifically state with their gift, I'm restricting this money to only be used on pickleball, so that the foundation couldn't then hand that money over to council for beautification of a median, right? So there's ways that donors can restrict and so that they only support what's important for them through the foundation.
Because we really don't have any kind of mechanism for that today. Like, we were talking about, just last night, we were talking about the athletic court proposal that the National Fitness Council had thrown out. And as much as the members here did vote for it, and eventually we took a pass on it. But one of the things that struck me, even though I voted for it, I'm like, that is a $240,000 price tag. That is pretty pricey. And we may be able to get, contributions from other municipalities, but we didn't know for sure. And if we could have had, let's say we had this 501c3 in place, and we could have said, all right, well, we have a commitment from the 501c3 to pay 20 or 30 or 40 or 1,000 on it. That makes it a little bit easier. And it's a little more formalized as opposed to, having to kind of jumble around each time an opportunity comes up. Like John was saying, you need to be able to pounce on these grants.
Oh, that's been an issue in the past, is we've been like, hey, totally in favor of this project, that's great, but can we even afford the grant?
Yeah.
I mean, we've got all this
Or the
money,
time
but
to
we
look
have
for the
put it up
grant,
front,
yeah.
and then we get reimbursed or we have to match, and so there have been grants that we've potentially had to decline because we don't have that funding source in place. So I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and that is what we did last night, but part of it was, we'd have to start spending, at least the 35,000 part of what we'd be, quote, matching within 60 days.
Right.
Because there's often time limitations on these things that you have to respond and stuff like that. And when you think about having to go through the budgeting process and, how we kind of have to lay out our priorities for a year, even if something is in our capital improvement plan, it's not necessarily funded. So then we have to, take the time to have Jill work through and do those things. So, part of it may also still be working with organizations like Habitat Builders and things like that on projects that are important to them, right? But we still have this funding structure in place that, might also bring funds to the table for, things that align with their interests there.
One of the things I could see this being helpful for is, state statute is very clear on what I can and cannot spend your tax dollars on. And a lot of it, some of it is gray, but a lot of it is just wrapped around this concept of public use, right? So for instance, we have neighborhoods that maybe have aging or dilapidated signs at their entrance, and they don't have the funds that they would need to replace those signs or beautify them or make them look good, but they feel like they don't want their neighborhood to be the eyesore in Marvin, right? So obviously, some of those neighborhoods have already reached out to us because of our outgoing grant program that we just recently started, but it's a really tough gray area where we sort of have to decide, you know, are we spending taxpayer dollars to make one neighborhood sign look pretty, you know? And could someone argue that we're not using the funds for the public at large? We're just benefiting private owners of one neighborhood, right? So that's where this type of stuff could come in handy, because there's probably people living in Marvin that, obviously, there are people that care about what Marvin looks like, that want to see these neighborhoods look beautiful, because it just makes Marvin as a whole continue to be a wonderful, beautiful community. But if the village can't legally spend taxpayer dollars on it, then a foundation like this would be able to meet that need and stay within the statutes and authority. So I think that would be another sort of helpful way that this foundation could help, where there might be neighborhoods that have a surplus of funds, or just a private donor who's, if it's only a few $1,000s, is willing to pay to bring this older neighborhood up to speed, so to speak.
Right, and speaking of taxes, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I just wanted to mention my Rotary Club. We have so the club is a civic club, and then we also set up a 501(c) so that we have members that are retired, and they have to take their required minimum distributions, and what they do is they donate it to the foundation. So I'm sure we have a lot of residents that have to take their RMD and, you know, need avenues to donate that. So there's another source of funds that could come in to help cover
And that would be,
grant matches.
and that's
So,
tax deductible if it goes to a
Exactly,
501c3, so it's kind of a win-win. I mean,
Yeah. We just had to set up separate board members for the club and the foundation, so. But it works out to keep things separate, and then when we do our fundraisers, then, you know, they can donate to the foundation, and I can send them a donation letter, which is very helpful in getting donations, so.
Yeah, to Jen's point, I definitely think we would have to be really careful how we set up the working arrangement, even if, I don't know if it would be a conflict of interest, I don't think so, but I would think maybe even somebody, whether it's someone employed by the village or even a council member, would probably want to potentially be a board member, but obviously would recuse themselves from certain votes and things. But there's got to be some synergy where we can't have a bunch of private residents pushing a ton of money in there to get their agenda pushed through a private foundation, and council's over here going, well, wait a second, that really doesn't fit in with our strategic plan for the town or what we're trying to do. But you're sort of circumventing that potentially by going through a private foundation. So I do think there needs to be a synergy, and we would need to iron out those details, but definitely a worthy cost. And this is super common. A lot of municipalities have foundations, especially when they're looking to have a library or something like that.
I'd love to have a satellite library.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm happy to reach out to other municipalities that have a foundation like this through my finance listserv, and maybe even just have a conversation to ask what worked well for you, how did you get this off the ground, what are the pitfalls that we're unaware of that you kind of learned the hard way, and maybe we can glean some really great feedback and avoid some of those pitfalls as we get this launched, if that's what you all decide to help with.
I think we need a knowledgeable CPA to guide through some of that
Yeah, I mean, hopefully
accounting.
hopefully somebody who's on the board of this foundation would have that background, because they are going to need somebody, and it can't be me, to run their books, and there's going to be reporting requirements and, you know, reconciliation of they're going to have to file their annual tax statements and all of that. So They'll need somebody with a finance background to do it, yeah.
As I hear this, and I think I like the concept makes sense where we find the funds. I'm very concerned about kind of the bandwidth of the community to contribute, because I guess we all know in the schools, usually when your children are in schools or sports, that's where our residents put their effort. And I'd love to think that there's lots of folks who are going to show up and, queue up to be on our board, but I am concerned. And there's also, again, a lot of folks, because of their, either their work positions or their, involvement in the community, have other foundations that they're a part of. So I'm not saying we're competing, but I do, given this, we have 6,000 residents, the capacity of our community to step up and fill this board, that's just one question in my mind, is do we have the people who will step up and consistently, because running a board is time, and we don't fill these seats too well often, so that's.
You don't know until you try, right?
No, agree, and that's why I think you're saying we do some exploratory. I'm not putting it down, I'm just saying when I hear that, I know how this community has worked. There's been a lot of focus on children, education, and sports, and obviously, it would be wonderful if folks come out and want to support this town as well.
Yeah, I totally agree, Christine. I think one of the things, like the first steps would be like reaching out to friends and family to figure out, reaching out to your networks and
Yeah.
see whether or not there might be an interest and, really whether or not we're going to be able to deliver on anything. Because you raised a good point is, we would be competing with a lot of other good causes. And it is a pretty small community. We have a pretty small pool to draw from.
I think that's what we're saying, just,
Yeah.
the signs on the field in Marvin Elementary are the same signs we'd want to have in our park, but all good. If those same, groups have contributed, that maybe they just don't know there's an opportunity to contribute also in our village.
Well, I think
so.
the other benefit of this concept, and I definitely would be in favor of pursuing it, is that in addition to our actual community, it gives us an opportunity to go beyond this community to get that funding. Because we're looking at corporate partnerships and civic communities, so they don't have to be in Marvin to contribute to Marvin. They just need to have some sort of nexus here to make it worth their while.
Like right across the street.
Yeah, yeah. When you think about it, and we talk about and joke about the donut holes in Marvin and things like that. But, I've always seen these are all members of our community that we go to church with, we go to school with,
Corporations looking for
all
tax
sorts of
deductible
things we
donations.
work with, on a daily basis. So, it's almost like you're looking at the opportunities here aren't just the 6,000, citizens of Marvin that are in this, 10 square mile area. It's really the 16,000, residents of the community that are in this area, because if it's focused to public service projects, it is things that are, helping out their general community
And I wouldn't be surprised.
without being the village of Marvin.
They may not staff
that
the
they may
board, but
not.
they may contribute to the funds. Right. That's why
Right.
I was thinking more on the actual
Or,
manpower.
or they could be on the board too, because that would be a totally separate
So just
financial
for,
board.
just for clarity on next steps, so the board, you guys are going to talk amongst your own networks and see if there is general community interest. Tom, are you looking for any other action from them formally, or are you planning to go to take the idea to council next, or?
I'd love to get feedback from parks. That's why I'm here today, is to get your feedback and, before we do anything with the council. And I'd love to, come back at the next meeting and see if you guys have any feedback or, where we could go from there.
Everyone okay
That
with
makes
putting
sense.
this on the next agenda,
We'll
just to
put
come
on the
back
next
to?
agenda.
Yeah, if you're willing to
yes.
wait
Yeah.
for us to
Yeah.
think amongst ourselves.
Well, yeah,
for-
I mean, you could do it.
But I think we're here,
It's one
the
of the
idea
hard parts
is
of
an
the way the
opportunity.
calendar works for us now, because we're not going to meet again until after
Yeah,
the next meeting.
We should change that.
We're working on
I'm
it.
having them
working
change it
on
for
it,
next
yeah.
year. Because council used to be second Tuesday, then y'all moved into the front, and they had already adopted their schedule for the year, so.
Oh, okay.
So for next year, they're going to move to the second week.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
So-
that'll make it a little bit easier. I think, if you needed a recommendation immediately, we could probably all chime in.
To do
but-
an exploratory.
Yeah, to do
Yes,
explore,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
not
right,
officially
of
committing,
course.
but,
Yeah, I think we might need somebody to
straw
kind of
poll,
take
I'm in
point on
favor,
doing the
of
exploratory.
exploring,
Do we have any, well, again, we could talk amongst ourselves unless
But yeah, we
someone
can
wants
also
to
bring, it
step
depends
up
on your
and.
timeframe,
do the
whether or
explore.
not you can wait
Yeah.
till the next agenda.
Yeah, no particular time frame. I just don't want to lose momentum on it, because, if we set it too far out, then everybody kind of forgets about it.
If you all can make a consensus right now, you don't have to discuss it again in a month. If you're just giving consensus on exploring your networks, you could make that consensus right now.
Do we need to make a motion, Austin?
So just a quick point of clarification. you guys next month will actually meet before council.
Great.
So if you do meet on September 1st if you want to discuss it during your September meeting, council won't meet until actually the 14th. They're only doing one meeting that month, so this board could have another discussion before council has another regular meeting. So council would have work session, they would meet, and then you guys have your regular meeting. So if you do want to continue this conversation a month, that wouldn't be too bad on schedule.
That makes sense. Let's just put it on the agenda for September and then continue.
Okay, we can do that.
I don't know if this is closing this topic, and maybe this is coming up later in Jill's report, because you did mention the sportsplex being funded.
I'll share
You'll
that
share that
as
because-
part of my
okay, 'cause I
council
just did have some
update.
questions on funding, but we'll get to cover that then. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Great.
Anything
Thank you.
else? Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
so much.
Appreciate it, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Okay. All right, next up on, that was our presentations, we have unfinished business. Next up is discussion recommendation on trailhead signage. I know Austin has attached a mock-up of proposed signage. Just to kind of give background, we have been talking about the need to identify our trails and greenways in the village of Marvin so folks know what they are accessing, as well as potentially providing information about any of our rules, restrictions, and as things change and update, folks know, what is out there. Did some research, and I think everyone who's ever walked on a greenway has always seen some sort of a signage. In communities like our size, Davidson, Chapel Hill, they actually have signed ordinances within their parks and greenways stating how they want to have their greenways identified. So it's, very common practice. I don't think there's any question that folks want to know where they are. The other reason, too, is as we invest time and effort from our public works staff to go and maintain these trails, we need to recognize the work that's being done and also have folks have a way to communicate back. If you're on a trail and you have a tree down, who do you communicate if you don't know what you're on? So I think there's good rationale for why we want to have signage. The question
And also
really,
where it's not,
But it's
you
not-
know.
Well, that's true.
Because, there are concerns.
Well, that's exactly it.
There
So-
are concerns within the community that there
100%.
are private trails that some particular neighborhoods have and things like that, so.
Just a quick note on the signs. I took Christina's feedback, made a generalized sign. You guys already have signs on trails for no motor vehicles. So this is just to mark, this is a trail, and here's a link to our trail map. So
Right,
that's
This is,
the-
and
that's
this
the
is where
only
you're
purpose.
accessing.
Yeah.
Because today, the only place we have that signage is within Eford Park, and so that's, of course, when that was built, and I think that was the Eagle Scout project or some Boy Scout project, which has been helpful. We're not talking about wayfinding with actual miles and direction. It's really, you are on a greenway.
Unless a scout wants to take that on.
Exactly, and that can be something in the future. Or even as we talked about sponsorship, I've seen trails in other communities where, there might be a sign, this trail is supported by, and then we could put whoever our corporate sponsor is. But for now, Austin and I were talking about keeping this generic because, we want to have a consistency, so that's why we just say trail access. We're not naming the trail, we're not putting an arrow to where you're going. It's really, and then there's a familiarity. Folks will see this when they go to different parts of the community, and now I'm on a Marvin Greenway because this is what our signage looks like.
No, I like it.
Any feedback, questions from what you see there?
I liked the genericness of it.
Yeah.
I mean, we could have, we could title the trails or whatever, but this just serves all purposes.
As far as ordering too, it's a little simpler,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Then
I
we're
mean,
not, this
yeah.
arrow goes this way, this trail's named
I
this
mean,
way.
yeah, I mean, it probably wouldn't kill us if we, had individual signs and named them, but it's kind of superfluous and easier to order in multiples if
Sure. Michael?
How many signs would you be planning to put, like, in each park or trail?
I think at a minimum, the key entrance point, correct, Austin? we're
These are
talking
for
about?
trailheads, so these would be publicly accessible entrances. Entrances that are on village easements.
Yep.
So,
So when you look,
Not on the ones that are.
right, so there's an Amber Meadow Trail, it's gone kind of off of Tom Shore Road. Right now, there's just a vehicle sign, right? That would be where a sign would go.
And that's one entrance, that's
Right,
one
it's
in,
a one
out,
entrance.
Yeah.
I think that where we might have some managing the signs is like on the Marvin Loop, because you can access it from multiple points off of Joe Carr Road and down here. And so we don't want to like clutter it too much with signs, but at least at kind of maybe one end or the other in the middle point, so when folks are accessing it.
And it's a process over time.
Right, we
you
don't
know.
put 'em all.
We don't have to, put everything out at once. We're starting now. We would look to identify some of the main areas of need. And then, as we budget, a certain amount maybe each year or something like that, we kind of fall into a cadence where, you know, we eventually do more of them and
I
so
think we
forth.
start small and then, I mean, minimum one entrance per, like you said, per trail, or if there's two entrances, and there's two.
These signs really only make sense at trail entrances.
Yes, because it says access. Yeah.
Quick side note, I know this board likes to do kind of projects throughout the year, like signs here, signs there. In future years, we probably should start planning an intentional budget each year. That way, whenever you guys want to implement something, we can make sure that we have it in the budget, and then we're not looking for funds.
Yeah, and I was,
Yeah, and that's something, just so you're aware, because you folks haven't necessarily gone through our budgeting process. I, as your PRG liaison, I would probably, you know, start having those conversations with the rest of council when we do like our retreat in January. Usually like the first or second week in January is where we even start kind of brainstorming the ideas, capital improvement projects that are either dedicated for the first year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. You know, just so that we're looking at our overall financial picture. And then as we get into the budget season, we expect, while we may not be replacing Tyler with a PRG person, we are still looking to fulfill that role with, more of kind of a project manager. So that might be someone that we would work with to make a recommendation to council maybe in February or something like that of, these are the areas that we'd want to target, and if we could get a certain amount in the budget for this and so forth. But we haven't been involved much in the budget process because we don't control any money. That's really, up to the council to decide. Correct, yeah, and that, I think that would be a good thing, for us to start doing kind of at Austin's behest, and probably Jill, of course, because anytime we find these little needs, Jill's the one that has to scramble around to see if there's pockets that are available to pull them.
And John, if I may, what we can also start doing is, like, during the CIP process, when we're prioritizing trails, is just kind of bake some of this estimate for, a sign or two, depending on which trail project it is, into that CIP estimate, where if we're looking to construct, for example, the Heritage Trail, where I don't think those are as part of this, this plan right in front of us, but in short, it's like if we're building a trail or a portion of a trail that year type thing, is maybe just go ahead and plan to have signage installed as part of that project as a whole. I mean, I think that's another way we can kind of start doing it, where we stay on top of it with any new construction.
Yeah, I talked to Austin a little bit about this earlier this week, where I definitely, at maybe one of our fall PRG meetings, will put an agenda item for us to be thinking about next fiscal year and any potential wants or needs from this board, because what I would like to do is start planning ahead, put that in the CIP, present it to council in January, get their backing behind it, and then be able to build it into the budget, versus now where Austin will come to me and say, hey, PRG wants to do this, and then I say, where am I getting the money for that? And we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. So, and that's not a criticism of y'all, that's just, I don't think we've done a good job of really pulling you guys in early and saying, like, hey, let's have conversations prior to budget season of what goals or needs this board has or can anticipate prior to going out for funding. And so that's going to be a priority for myself, but also hopefully the new program manager, project manager coming in.
Telling us that now helps us start planning, because January, that's perfect.
Yeah.
and
As far as these signs go, though, if this board wants to recommend approval of purchasing and installing these signs, that would then go to council. Council would make that final call. So just know that what you're recommending approval of might not be final form, or council may choose not to do it. It just depends on what they want to do.
Okay. And then, so this will come up at the next council meeting, the way the process works. Do we need to come and speak to any of this, or can we help? I mean, I'm just wondering, can we help provide more context? Obviously, John will, but is there anything else we can do from, other examples of communities? I just feel like this has come back and forth so many times, and I'm, and I feel like this has been a lot of effort from Austin, but just as a community, I think, well, I know that we all believe in this process, so how do we?
Yeah, well, I think the fact, and I do like the idea of us having these more generic trail signs, because information can change, And by referencing them like this specifically to the QR code, that gives us more flexibility in terms of being able to change things on the backside
You
as,
could literally move it.
as they're needed. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. So, I think, it doesn't hurt, and, Tom's very approachable, the other council people, so, if you want to reach out and just express, because, we've had it both ways over the years. There's waves of times where people say, listen, I went to the website or this, or it's confusing, and I'm not sure where the trail is. I saw it on the website, but I went there, and where do you park, and, stuff like that. And then, at one point, I remember us talking about signs that actually had named signs for that, and how long it was till the next trailhead, and things like that, and people were like, well, no, we don't want that much information, So it's really trying to strike a balance, and I think from council's perspective, when we're talking about just the costs of implementing these signs and so forth, the fact that they're more generic like that makes you feel, quite a bit better about, buying 10 or 20 of these, than if you're buying individual signs of things that
Yeah.
information could change, and then you're chucking that sign out with the bathwater,
They're about $45 each.
$45 each, okay, and we have 8, we have 5 trails that don't have
I would
signage.
say you'd probably start off with 10 signs.
Then-
go
Because we
from
have
there.
different access points, like Marvin Loop would
You don't,
probably
you
need.
don't need them on, you really don't need them on the loop, because the loop doesn't really have an entrance. You wouldn't put them at the park because you already have them, so between Amber Meadows, Tullamore, the Preserve Internal Trail,
Heritage.
Heritage.
I still believe somewhere on the Marvin Loop, I know we don't have an entrance, but it still feels funny not ever. Well, my only concern with Marvin Loop is we never acknowledge that it's Marvin. I think many folks might just think it's Marvin Creek because it's surrounding Marvin Creek. So this is also part of recognition and branding of our community assets. So that would be a,
You may just want to maybe put a sign or two in the areas that aren't clearly sidewalks.
yes. Oh,
And,
yes, that's
and,
what I'm
and the
saying,
other
yes.
thing always, when you're looking at these things, when Austin works with the vendor, I'm sure there's some sort of economies of scale where,
Not at this size.
No.
We had to purchase a lot more.
Well, we
okay.
could order 100 of them. Okay,
Well,
so-
I was
getting
even
3
thinking
signs,
like
it's not a
20
big
might
deal.
be more than
Than
2.
two, yeah, exactly.
A better
Yeah.
deal than 2, or something like that.
Okay, but 45, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't there a entrance in Marvin Creek for the Marvin Loop?
There is when you come out of, I think, what's the?
Painted, no, not
It's-
Painted,
it's the one,
it's a cul-de-sac, yeah.
There's 2 Marvin Creeks. Well, there's I think it's the one where Tom actually is. It's that, there's a little access. path.
Well,
That's not us, though, that's Marvin Creek.
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
but what you also understand is that any sidewalk is also essential, for the Marvin Loop, is also essentially a trailhead to some degree. Because, the sidewalks are all public. So we're talking about, it being public use as long as our greenway, or the loop,
Yes.
for instance, is connected to a publicly maintained Village of Marvin sidewalk. That's essentially a connection there.
Well, the good thing with those signs is as the loop grows, we can just keep moving them out. I'm just saying there's room to put them. So do we need to
And,
make?
and we've always talked about, we don't want to inundate
No.
things too, because that's certainly something that we don't want in Marvin, is just a litter of signage,
I do need a motion from you all if you want to send this to council. So you would need a motion to recommend approval of the trail access sign and to recommend installing the signs at village trailheads.
Okay, I make a motion. Do you want me to repeat that then?
You can just say so moved.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passed.
I'll put that on council's next agenda.
Okay, and thank you again, Austin. You have done a lot with signage for us in the past year, too. Yes. Appreciate that. Okay, next up, we have the discussion of 2026 Arbor Day coming around the corner. Hunter?
All right. So just want to have a brief discussion, kind of start getting some, getting a game plan together for our Arbor Day event on Saturday, October 24th. First thing I kind of wanted to discuss is one I would invite all you guys to attend if possible. We had a really good turnout last year and want to kind of, like I said, find a way to continue to grow this and grow the programming of the event. With that being said, last year we did it from 1 to 3. And I just wanted to get some feedback from the board, and if that's kind of a similar time frame we want to do. Essentially, last year we did We kind of coupled it with the plant exchange, and we did a kind of planting educational type thing where Trees Union, we planted a tree. My plan this year is we do something similar there again, but we might even plant a few more, even with some of the baby trees we got. And so does the board have any feedback? Does 1 to 3 sound good? Or do we want to look at something earlier in the day, something longer? Just trying to get some initial guidance there for this event.
I don't see any problem with the 1 to 3. I'm trying to, it kind of depends on what we're going to do. Like, if we're gonna plant 100 trees, which we still have, well, 99 anyway, that's a different gig than planting the one big one, right? They're little, well, they're not that little, but,
Are you envisioning like a kickoff, like, hey, we all land, like, whatever you say, you rally folks, and we all land in the park, and then at 1 o'clock, everyone disperses to plant their tree and comes back? I mean, or are you saying, I mean, I just didn't
it's a
know.
complete random planting.
Like a trash cleanup.
Right, like a track, well, no, you have a flag where you want them to plant it, but I'm just saying, are you thinking like this is the day we get folks to come together and plant versus just assume that they're gonna do it on their own?
Well, no, we have a lot of volunteer organizations that we can tap that I think would, if we will get it on the schedule, they're ready to go.
Yeah, that's kind of what I want to try to get some of this nailed down so we can reach out to, the State Forestry Service, Trees Union, get Keith here with our urban forester, which a lot of them have the dates already in their calendar. I'm just trying to get the time finalized. I know some of the additional programming that we talked about is potentially doing some trail walks with, I know Christina Culp and I have talked about that. And opportunity, once again, look at trees along our trails, and other educational opportunities. So if we want to stick, to that 1 to 3 again, like I said, that's completely fine. If we want to expand it, this is kind of, last year we were putting together this application for our Tree City USA. We kind of, Christina Culp and Bob Nunnenkamp were very helpful with Polemy and I with the initial planning of this. And now that PRNG is our also de facto tree board, this is something that I want, like I said, to you guys to help grow, to grow the event in general, but also grow, these educational programs for our Tree City USA certification. So
What are you looking for?
like I said, the time, 1 to 3, do we want to stick with just 1 to 3 this year? And then or is that all good with everybody?
Well, is it something where it might be 1 to 3, which is the formal event, but then people are dispersed from then
Or
to go
before
do?
and after.
Yeah.
We could do some pre-work and we could do some after work if we needed to. So 1 to 3 is nice in the middle and we can
Yeah.
work around it.
Yeah, we can advertise it from 1 to 3.
Volunteers to have something back at the park.
Oh, yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Like an event.
Hunter, just to add, you had originally had us hold on the calendar for you 8 to 2. So we do have someone that is looking to rent the barn starting at 3.
Okay.
So whatever event you have, if you could try to be at least no longer needing the barn by 3, that would be great. Or I can just move that renter out further.
We shouldn't need the barn.
But parking.
Yeah, do we want to look at doing from like 10 to 12? 10 to 12, and then that gives us a little leeway after if anybody wants to stay and maybe do a trail walk and stuff.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, because of that, yeah.
Or 11 to 1.
Yeah. Will be the formal event
No,
time.
that's what we're gonna talk about right now. So she just asked the question, are all those trees, and we're probably 120, let's say, because it was a hard summer. We have 120 trees of various sizes and types.
Because we talked about meadowlark, right?
We did, and so my thought, this is just Hunter's thought, I want to get your guys' feedback. No, once again, it's going to really depend on turnout. I do think there's a potential opportunity for residents that do come and participate, maybe of giving them a tree. Now granted, if we have 99 people show up, I'd be very impressed, but I do plan on using some of those trees for some other plantings throughout the village, but I can look at, further conversations with Trees Union and Keith to see if any other tree, because I plan on getting a larger size tree for the actual planning educational portion, similar to the one that we did last year, but we do have, like I said, those smaller baby trees that we potentially can look at giving some away, or we can do some type of raffle. I don't know, that's,
When he says
Yeah, I
baby
like that.
trees, some of them are.
they're not, they're still, good size, but they're,
Some of them are this.
yeah.
But kind of going back to what Deb was saying, I think Meadowlark was one, maybe for this year with the, like you said, maybe a portion of it goes to the community, but should we target some of, for this year, the Greenways where we have kind of spots? I mean, they've been on the loop, kind of right out here, there's a lot of sun exposure, so would this be a thought? I mean, and the park, I mean, Christina, you've got a better sense of where we could use them. I know we talked about HOAs also picking them up, but I feel like for now, we've got a surplus, we've got some Greenways that have opportunities in park.
I would
space.
like to focus on trees that I know are gonna get planted. Meaning, if you give them to somebody, giving means that they don't
Yeah.
have any value, so they're gonna sit somewhere and maybe not get planted. So I would prefer to focus on plants I know are gonna get planted, so in common areas of
That's what
HOAs,
I'm
if we kind of help direct that.
And-
Because also getting them planted properly, it's not hard, it's just really easy to do it wrong.
And maybe what we can do is offer, you know, if a resident or, you know, if there's a member of an HOA that's there, we can offer, yeah, because instead of just giving it to them. Because I think if we are offering and they are interested in it, I'm hoping that means that they are interested in them planting it.
Right.
And so, and then maybe we'll just set aside anywhere from like 20 to 30, and you and I can get together on just kind of divvying those out.
The toughest ones,
Yeah.
not the
And,
dogwoods.
and so, and then, yeah, so maybe what we can do is, like I said, just keeping this high level, and we'll get the more details for the September meeting. So we'll do it from 10 to 2. We'll do one big tree educational planting.
Like we did last time.
And, I mean, we can also potentially do even a small tree, like a smaller tree planting to show if there's any, you know, from an educational standpoint, especially if we're giving some of them away, I think it'd be helpful to do. And then do some tree walk or trail walks. And is there anything else that, you know?
We could
from
do
a-
another plant exchange
Yeah.
if people are interested in that.
Yeah,
I mean,
Okay.
I think if we promote it more, it doesn't hurt, doesn't cost anything.
Let,
No, exactly.
let me ask this. Would it be helpful to plan something like our Public Works team being available, you know, if we're trying to do a lot that day or something, and providing, when maybe we rent an auger or something like that, that can help to.
Well, the new trees we're talking about are like, you know,
We would need an auger for the big
but
tree,
for the big one, yeah.
which last year,
Okay.
one of our former council members dedicated his time and dug that for us. I can reach out to him
Okay,
to see if he wants
Well,
to do
and
it.
that's what I was wondering. It might help it,
yeah.
even, not just that one, but if,
Some of
you
those
know,
common areas, perhaps,
if we're 10 till 2, or 10 till noon, you know, if we have,
We already have
kind
the
of a-
holes dug.
Yeah.
And then you send your volunteer groups out to those
Yeah.
spots on the greenways.
And we can,
parks.
like I said, we can kind of get some of those details planned out. I know Christina, I'll get with Christina on that. And if we need to rent, I'll see if we have money. But I'll reach out to Andy to see if he wants to also, you know,
you can
volunteer.
tell I just spent 2 days this week digging out some fence posts and in our Carolina clay and rock and cement. So that's why I'm thinking
Yeah, I don't
sometimes
wanna
work
do that
smarter,
too.
not harder. Yeah.
The other thing to wrap around that is the possibility of doing a mulch day, which Matt and I have been talking about. It's one of those things that I can get volunteers to do really well, is mulch. So we could wrap that around that day too, and really add some mulch to the trees that we already have, so that we get to the drip line instead of
The cone.
whatever.
Volcano.
Yeah, well, we don't have any volcanoes, but.
We don't, but I'm
no, we
saying
don't.
you-
Yeah, exactly. But we could, that's another thing that we could add to that day. If you've already got people out, you know,
Yeah.
most of the time people want to do a couple of hours of volunteer work if they can, you know, because they're.
I said, my goal, my vision for this event over time is like where we do spend a full volunteer day, like half day or something like that, and we're planting trees at the park or at some village property. And because I know like Huntersville last year for their Arbor Day, they planted like 100 trees in one of their parks. Like, and we walked it with the state forester when he came to give us all our lovely tree guides and stuff. But we have a lot of opportunity at the park that, you know, to enhance the canopy out there, but still, you know, giving it, having areas to utilize if it's in the lawn, but it'll also help with maintenance from our guys over time. And so, I mean, that's something like we're going to be building out the next year, is building out a planting plan that we can start, hey, this year we're going to plant X amount of trees based off of this, and here's, you know, the general locations of what we're looking for. So this is just, like I said, second annual one, and we're going to, like I said, my goal is to continue continue to have it grow and make it something special for the village.
And Matt did just share with me that we actually do have in-house an 8-inch auger.
Okay, perfect.
So.
Too bad you didn't know
it
about
might-
that this weekend.
I don't use public things for my
Oh, no, I mean
private.
that, oh, sorry, I didn't mean that, I meant that,
But,
The bigger tree, we would have to either rent or
okay.
talk to former council, but, we do
Because that
have-
was a big hole.
Yeah.
But for the smaller ones, we do have in-house augers, we can, assist any way possible.
No, that'd be perfect for
Yeah.
that.
So Hunter, like you said, you've thrown out some ideas, next meeting in September, we can kind of finalize all the activities.
Yeah, I'll come with a more finalized plan. We're going to start, Lucas is already putting together the banner and some advertising materials. And at the September council meeting, council will adopt their proclamation proclaiming
Would you like,
the 24th, or
Do you
yeah.
need PR&D then to come up? I mean, I think we've tossed ideas, the forest walking, the plant. Do you want something from
Yeah,
PR&D?
pick
to
out
help?
some space at like where we think, if we're gonna add some to, some of our areas, if you're out walking one of the trails and
You
you
see a
say,
spot.
this is a perfect place for, let's start kind of mapping those
So we'll
out
come
in our
back
minds
on
and come
Saturday.
back.
Let me add this idea. If you're in a forested area and you want to add a tree, you are very limited as to what will live in there.
Yeah.
They like sun.
Right.
So adding them out where we put the one last year, putting more out there, there's a lot more likelihood that it will survive
Yeah.
than putting them in.
Right. But like I've,
And that's why I was thinking there might be areas along the Marvin Loop,
what I'm thinking, right outside
to
the-
some of those
Or the
things.
edges of things,
Yeah.
because we do have.
Or
some
the
red buds.
trailheads,
We have redbuds and dogwoods. Those are all ones that, like, the edges are inside the tree line a little bit. What I'll do is make a list of what we have. We've only lost like 2, I think.
Do we have any evergreen trees? that
We have some eastern cedar,
Okay.
but
Would-
not many.
Would you want to put those along Meadowlark,
He's working on a plan over there.
potentially to
Yeah,
screen
and
for the trail?
We can
that-
talk, like, we can, for anything Meadowlark and Heritage, I'll hit on when I, in that update, just
okay.
keep it separate.
Okay.
But yes, I've got a plan for that too.
But what I'm gonna do is get the volunteer organizations that I know, get this on their calendar, so they know,
Okay.
show up and be ready to do something.
And then we'll have a plan of where they were going to plant.
And
That's
what
what
they're
we'll
gonna
work
do.
through over the next
So
month.
I think Hunter has his marching orders, but we do for clarity, you guys have, someone said 10 to 12, someone said 10 to 2. What's the time?
10 to 12,
10 to 12.
right? And then we may extend it on either end of that, just not officially.
From 10 to
10
12,
to 12
yeah.
is what we're advertising, that's what you need to
Okay.
worry about.
And then when do you need to know the specifics of what we're going to be doing? In addition to the planting, if we're going to do the forest walk or the plant exchange, because for for communication,
Well,
Austin,
I think as long as we have that hashed out for September, then we can start kind of putting, I think,
have time
in our
until
social
September's
media
meeting.
posts, it can be like, come out, for, tree planting educational, potentially, take home a tree, like, start kind of putting that in the, like, or
I mean,
in
I
our
already have everything
thing.
built out for that month, but I can add a few things in. Just next meeting would be my preference.
okay, that's fine, as long as we have till then. Nope.
Well,
Also for this, as far as digging the holes, we're gonna do them that day of,
We'll do it the week of.
yeah, so you'll be.
Because I do know we have the trick or treating in the park, and so we can get together, because my thought is in that same area where we planted last year. And so as long as that's not being utilized for parking and we just rope it off for safety.
question, this event coming up, the 24th, Forest Public Works that day, what do you need?
Shouldn't,
You guys can have this conversation
Yeah.
outside the meeting.
I shouldn't need anything from you, but we'll talk.
I think the board is good though for what they need to provide. You guys want to move on, because I know we are starting to go over time.
Okay. Thank you, Hunter, for your leadership on this, and exciting to have a next round and this continue.
And to have 100 trees that
And to
just
have
got
the-
dropped in our lap.
Right.
And thank you to Troop 99 for watering those 3 times a week. Yes. Well, not lately. Mother
definitely
Nature.
needed it this year.
Mother Nature has been taking care of that the last couple of days, but yeah.
Okay. Our next item up is for Hunter again. This is new business, and we are talking the recap of the comprehensive plan, Greenway Master Plan open house that was held last week.
Yeah, so we had our open house, I guess a week and a half ago now. We had we had really good turnout. We had about, I would say, approximately 30-ish residents. In short, a lot of feedback received regarding the new kind of the new way Kimley Horn's kind of showing our conceptual trail map and the prioritization over short, mid, and long term. I know both Christinas have seen that, and John. All this will be provided to you guys at your September meeting. We should be getting a final draft. Staff should be getting a final draft sometime in the next week or two. I actually have a call with Kimley Horn right after this meeting. And that final draft will come to the PR&G board in September. Ultimately, I would say I have not received any type of formal document of summarizing all the feedback, but based off of discussions I had with multiple residents, you had a mixture of opinions on certain projects and prioritization. You had, I would say, a majority of what I heard is once again focusing on trying to complete the loop. It would be priority number one, and then having any then future trails having connection or tying to the loop, and that is kind of how we do have it prioritized in the current draft. There were other areas where some mapping of from the old map into the new and getting those updated for clarification for anybody in the public that's reading the document, and there's no kind of discrepancy there. So that's kind of been identified as well and addressed at Kimley Horn. We're also putting together one thing that our 2020 plan lacked, that our 2008 plan had, was kind of differentiating where we already have easements and not. Once again, these maps are conceptual. They're showing routing between point A and point B. The goal is if you have easements, great. But it's also, to further conversations with community members, if it's HOAs, private property and property owners, or future developments, and trying to then, build out your connectivity over time. And so I think overlapping it where we have easements is also kind of important to see where we, from the prioritization standpoint. And so all that information was sent to Kimley Horn last week, so they'll be kind of incorporating that into the plan and into their maps and recommendations as well. So other than that, once I get that information, like I said, I'll be sharing it with Christina for first kind of review, and John, since you guys have been on that working group, and then that final draft, Haley from Kimley Horn will be to present. I said right now, tentatively should be your September meeting.
So Hunter, it's great, 30 residents. Do we know did they represent, I don't know if we captured a broader range of neighbors, or what was the makeup?
I'll say, so this was, out of all the recent open houses, public engagement type events, I would say I met maybe 12 to 14 new people, which was that's why I was, I thought it was good turnout. I spoke with a couple from Firethorn that I never met. There was actually a couple here from the Heritage at Marvin, newer residents. I spoke with a resident in Canterfield Creek, I think another one from Innisbrook, Meadowlark, Preserve, Marvin Creek. So I feel like there was a good representation. I would say
Oldenburg, there was that.
Yeah, there was a couple, even though they're not in Marvin, from Oldenburg.
Mix.
So, it was one of these things, I would say there wasn't anybody maybe from Weddington Chase or any kind of, that side, but I still think we had a very good representation of a lot of the subdivisions here around, specifically around the Marvin Loop and the tying into there. So, no, I was happy to see that we had a really good turnout in that essence there.
Okay. And then just another question, because Christina and I have seen the new maps, as you said, did you get a sense that folks could interpret them well? Because this is kind of a litmus test of if you look at it, does that make sense? What was and I know you're capturing feedback, but just as a whole, was this okay?
And that's something that we've discussed with Kimley Horn, is trying to, it's why I say it's conceptual, right? It's one of these things that you hear that from some residents, they don't want certain connections and other stuff, and I get it, that's opinion that's incorporated into the plan. But the biggest thing is, especially from a Greenway map, is having it all connected. That's kind of the goal of having a Greenway plan, and you want it all connected. And so I know there's one, for example, there's one on the conceptual plan that goes through Wyndham Hall, Bridle Path, through Canterfield, that ties into Tullamore. Is that practical? Probably not. One, because of the lack of easement, but two, there's really not any great opportunities, specifically through Bridle Path and Wyndham Hall. And so that's where, in my conversation with Kimley Horn, is looking at adding a just routing path along Ray Road to, even though that's outside of Marvin's limits, it's still with the Marvin Commons project, there's certain things, like, it's somewhat already disconnected with how Marvin's laid out. But there is opportunity, and I've had conversations with the county on this, because there's some existing sidewalk outside of Hunter Oaks. Like, there's a way to potentially still get connectivity from Ray Road all the way to Village Hall, for example. And so kind of identifying those alternatives is something we heard some feedback on. But, you know, ultimately, the biggest thing, like, yeah, this is a plan. It's somewhat of a wish list, but somewhat also showing, you know, these expectations. These expectations were initially identified in our 2008 plan. And that's how we got certain trails or easements, you know, for example, the preserve, like, because it aligned with that 2008 plan, which was the adopted plan at the time. And so, you know, I do think the way we've laid it out looks better now, in regards to prioritization. Because the biggest thing is, like, even though we're showing it as a, you know, 10-year kind of horizon of what we want to achieve, there's other factors that are obviously going to come up. That there's still funding limitations. There's still potential easement acquisition that would be needed, but that at least gives staff, PRG, and council kind of an outline of, like, okay, if we're looking to do this trail in a 5-year plan, we know that, you know, easements are required or needed. From a CIP standpoint and from a staffing standpoint, that's stuff that we can start working on and having those conversations if that's still the vision that we're trying to achieve.
No, I appreciate that, Hunter, and thank you for that. That's going to be the last open house, is that correct, too?
Correct. And so the next steps is, so once again, you got your comp plan and your Greenway master plan. They're two separate projects. They go hand in hand, but they're still two separate projects, because the Greenway master plan is an update to what's already, you know, an update to the 2020 plan, which was an update to the 2008 plan, and building off of that. And so the next steps for that is, like I said, tentatively would be coming to PRG for review and recommendation in September. It could be October, but I would say October at the latest, but you guys will then review, provide a recommendation, and then it will go to council for adoption. The reason why it might be a month behind is because I am trying to, in a way, in this conversation with Kimley Horn, because these are two separate plans, not trying to have them adopted at the same time to confuse people, if that makes sense. I think, so if Kimley Horn gets me a draft for the comp plan overall, like this week for me to review, then potentially that will be on planning board in August and then council in September. But at the same time, if they don't, then that might be September and then October, and then the Greenway master plan might be October and November. Like I said, I'll get a better idea after our biweekly call here later today and go from there. But yeah, I think ultimately it's going to be a good product that's definitely going to be a great resource and tool for the village on both ends.
All right, thank you, and thank you, folks. I know we had folks in PRG come out and support this, too, so I'm glad to hear that you had good representation across the community.
Yeah, no, I appreciate, you know, everybody that attended, and like I said, keep on coming out and participating, because we want to hear everybody's opinion so we can incorporate it in as we do these projects.
Okay, thank you. Next item up is the discussion of the bench and pergola, really, bench and pergola installation at Houston Ross Park. So-
Before you guys start, I know Matt had an update he wanted to give today. Do you want to go and do that, Matt?
Sure, thank you.
Public Works update, parks and maintenance, nothing new, routine maintenance been performed. Same with the Greenways, the completed project, the new sign for Village Hall and Houston Ross Park out here. Big one I want to share is multiple repairs to the community garden fence at Marvin Eford Park, and I do recommend us replacing that fence in the fall and the winter, $800 for material.
The rabbits have figured it out.
Yes, ma'am.
yes.
And
Oh, yes.
the new one that I quoted is the 1/2-inch squares.
Okay.
Current projects, obtaining the sod installation for the, where it got damaged out here. Also, the county water being hooked up for irrigation, because the well is down, not being repaired. Upcoming projects, we got the mulch installation, we got the pergola building installation, drainage repair here at Village Hall from where it was damaged for the equipment out here. And then also, of course, the irrigation. This is my big one with everything, safety. We do got a piece of busted concrete at Marvin Eford Park at the restrooms. It's getting a little worse. Johnny Mack is gonna meet me this afternoon, give me a quote for that, so I can bring that back. Public Works also on safety. When you pull in the park, where the trail comes out of the butterfly garden, that was very thick. We opened that up because we couldn't see people walking into the road out of the park, out of the trail there. So now you see it's more open. You can see people coming out of it. Public Works continue to monitor sidewalks, trails, playground areas, trees, and other public facilities for potential hazards. The 2026 annual playground state inspection was performed and good for another year.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
Makes sense.
Yeah, right.
the-
Safety, right?
Yes, ma'am. And then the Public Works, we've completed 128 work orders since January 1st of 2026. This does not include our routine maintenance that we do on a daily basis. This is just extra stuff such as a door broke, a fence broke, stuff like that, you know. We've completed 128. Public Works will continue to routine maintenance, inspection, and repairs while prioritizing safety and maintaining the village's park, recreational facilities, and greenway systems.
And when he says safety, he means they take care of the roundabouts and the edges of the roads. And so that means they're out there mowing and weed eating while, you know? Yeah, it's a little scary.
Yeah, I incorporated for us this year to start, if you see us out there now, when we're doing the median, I'm behind the mower with the truck, slowing traffic up coming behind us. And then I go to the roundabout, turn around, do the same thing, just a
I
safety
need you
practice.
to help me on some of mine. Yeah, the same thing. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Beth.
Just a quick note, I know we still got enough time. Once we get to reports and updates, I'd like to do Trails and Greenways first, because Hunter's got a 10:30 call to get to, so.
Sure thing.
Let's go ahead and do the bench and pergola discussion, and then jump to Trails and Greenways report.
Okay.
So now we're doing bench and pergola?
Right, and I guess maybe part of Matt's report too is that, as I understand, the park has now been turned over to Public Works, is that right? From,
oh, yes,
yes.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I mean, I know you,
We are maintaining
For a
that
couple
now.
of weeks,
you are
right?
maintaining that too, so, okay.
Yeah, we are maintaining that now.
Yeah, well, and I guess the bench and pergola is just kind of waiting because they got the pond guy here that's, you know, kind of doing his thing. And as you can see, there's a lot going on with that. It looked really cool when I saw the cisterns, I guess. They were all stacked up and getting ready to go. So I think that'll be a very useful feature, you know, to help us with the water and everything. Did I hear you mention, Matt, that the old well has been kind of declared dead at this point?
Yes,
or-
sir, it was hit by lightning.
So is the well dead, not pumping water, or it's just the pump?
Yeah, the well has minimized gallons in the past 3 years, I think it was. It's went down 5 gallons per minute it's producing. That's because other wells in the area being drilled in that same vein. However, the irrigation wasn't coming on, so we checked it. We was only getting 5 volts at the board. That's a 240 system. And so got looking at it, it's been hit by lightning and fried, and it was close to $3 grand to repair. And so they just decided to go ahead and not repair that while we're doing the county water.
Gotcha.
Okay. All righty, thank you. Christina, you want to, I guess we were talking, maybe we were saying that, so the pergola is going to be, it was purchased and it's going to be set up through your,
Oh, it's sitting at the shed, right? I
okay,
mean, not built.
right.
We've got it at the shop, we're just waiting for it to be clear to put up
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
And then Chris, maybe you and I exchanged emails, but the location has been defined, right? You
So,
were,
well, here's a good question,
Okay.
though. The location, does that change relative to the drain that's the drain that got kind of crushed?
Yeah,
That you're
no,
gonna have to redo?
the pergola is 16 feet long, 12 foot wide, and between where the trail entrance comes up to the new sidewalk and not the drain, but the edge of the broken dirt from the drain.
Yep.
It's like 17 feet, so it'll fit right in there.
So does that make,
probably
So-
easier to see it, but yes, you can.
we'll go out and
yeah,
look,
okay,
but it's
okay.
where we said we were
Perfect.
gonna
Okay,
put it.
good.
Yeah, and so the long side is up against the sidewalk.
Parallel with the sidewalk.
Parallel,
Yes,
thank you,
ma'am.
up against, yeah, parallel to the sidewalk.
Okay, and then the benches, and I think maybe is Jill's report, they're going to be ordered and placed?
Oh, she's ordered them.
They've ordered, yes.
Yeah, so I ordered 3 benches, 2 are going under the pergola. I ordered a third TBD. I know you guys wanted one kind of near or around the pond. So I did order a third, and then I'll also be ordering, I'm going to get with Matt on this, but I'll also be ordering some trash bins that match those, that, like the nice ones.
Will we
But
also have
want to
dog
know how many
stations?
Matt thinks we need and confirm that he's good with the ones I choose first. But yes, there are dog waste stations planned. Again, I got to get with Matt on that because his guys can take care of that, and that's what they do at the other park as well. But as far as where and how many, I'll defer to Matt for that decision, because that really, I rely on his expertise. No, yeah, we don't need too many,
Yeah.
so.
That's where you're walking your dog for a reason. Yeah,
Okay,
okay, that sounds good.
great. And
So
the,
you did order 3, so we.
I got
we'll
3
figure out a
benches.
place
yeah, where it looks best with the,
That won't sink into the,
right.
it might take a while before we're ready to place the one near the pond.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Seriously.
Are they affixed, like, are they to the ground when you put those type of benches in? Are they movable?
The benches will be they'll be screwed into the ground.
Okay,
Yeah, but they also weigh 180 pounds or
okay, so they're not going anywhere too easily. Okay,
down.
down, okay.
There are like mounting installation kits that I'll get for Matt's team, that really long screws that go deep into the ground.
All right,
So no, we're not gonna leave.
and we're not going to change our minds. So
We're not changing our minds.
Yes.
No, we're not changing our minds.
Okay, I think that's it for that, right? And Christine and I just to change some emails. All right, next up, did you want to change order? Okay, we're going to move up the Trails and Greenway report from Hunter.
Okay, so last night, council approved the quote for the construction, for the remaining portion of the Heritage at Marvin Trail. And so that quote was for a 5-foot wide natural surface trail. It came in under our amount that we received for the fee in lieu. Same vendor that has pretty much that we always have worked with, Blue Ridge Trail Works. So next steps on that is that I actually texted Scott this morning to let him know that that was approved, and we'll get the contract executed as soon as our interim manager gets back from vacation next week. I will be, basically he'll go out and flag the route. And as previously mentioned, Jones Homes has already agreed that, basically they platted the easement kind of in the common open space, but that, completely open for us to go out and flag what we think is the best route to limit any type of vegetation removal, but also just, with the existing topography and everything out there, in any areas that we will need to relocate, they've already agreed to basically work with the village to get those properly that updated easement agreement executed. So we'll go out, he'll flag it. Then I think I've already talked with Christina Culp, kind of walk it to identify any areas regarding potential screening needed. I've also, as the developer is closing out on the development end to have their bond release and roads accepted, we did a walkthrough last week to get their punch list items. One of those is also having some additional screening planted at the back of those lots that's in the common open space where they have the room. And so the goal of that is, one, putting some of that on the developer that will benefit the homes along that area to be screened with some evergreen screening. They've done this. If you go into the Heritage and you pull in and you look left and right, you see some screening kind of already installed. Essentially on the left side, they'll extend that all the way down. And so that will hopefully help address with any type of concerns with some of those new residents along that trail easement. And then, like I said, where we can identify some opportunities to do some plantings in it. It may be with some of the plants that we have, or we may have to see, do some type of partnership and work with the developer and other things of trying to, identify some plants that are going to grow in shade. Because, luckily along the back end of those lots where the developer is going to be should be
They should
in the
have no
sun.
problem over
Correct.
there, yeah.
So, and like I said, over time, that evergreen screening will grow and grow in and create the visual that they're trying to achieve, but then where we can also find opportunities, especially to kind of screen from maybe the Meadowlark roadside, I think that's where we can kind of identify some of those areas too.
Did you specify what size those screening trees need to install size?
I think our ordinance says they have to be a minimum, don't quote me on this, I'll confirm. It's a minimum either 12 or 15 feet, or between 10 and 15 feet height, and I think 4 inches in diameter.
When they're installed?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
It's 3 or 4 inches in diameter and 10 to 15 feet in height.
That's a big tree.
Yeah.
Hopefully they'll wait till fall.
And I've requested that. because they did already have a few trees in their common areas that didn't make the heat. And so they have those warranted. Those will be replaced as well as part of their process.
There's a lot of trees being replaced. Okay, that's good to know.
Diana, just to kind of recap for folks who may not have heard in past, the whole distance of the Heritage Trail, and what's the distance of the new part, just the whole overall?
13 to 1,500 linear feet.
Okay. That's the entirety of the Heritage Trail, or
That's
the new part?
just the new part.
The new part is, okay.
Yeah, I would have to get the total. Like I said,
Walk through the woods.
yeah, the asphalt portion's already in, and they have benches installed along that as well. That was part of their original agreement. There's 2 more that they have to install, but they do have benches along that. I do recall, I think one of the initial discussions too is potentially some low voltage lighting, maybe along the paved portion, but I know, if I recall, 3 years ago when that rezoning came to you guys, I know there was also some environmental concern with, and so there's no lighting proposed along the Meadow Lark side. There's no lighting currently installed along the Newtown Road side, but that is something that, we can look at if that's something the village wants to do in the future. But no, like I said, that the asphalt paved portion looks good. It gets utilized. This will kind of complete an internal loop, and then, long-term, the goal would be if we can get the loop extended there, or even potentially, opportunities to find additional connectivity for those residents to be connected to, Village Hall, the park, and through some existing trails and some smaller projects there. But it's, one step in the process, and at least get them their amenity, and then, some in the future that we'll be looking at is if at all, if there's any type of amenities that the village wants to do on that 2.25 acre that they dedicated for a park. We can leave it wooded, and that's a conversation for a different time. Like I said, right now we don't have any plans, and whatever would go there, I think would be very low impact or low. I mean, because you don't have parking, it would have to be something that's like a walkable kind of passive type amenities. But yeah, we're moving forward, and I would think, depending on our trail builder's schedule, that he would begin construction probably in October, November, and that will also provide another opportunity to identify any gaps for screening that could be that we can do some plantings for.
And you'll let me know for a walkthrough,
Yes.
or when they first look like that. Perfect, thank you.
All right, any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Hunter.
Thanks, Hunter.
So go back to Jill for the event planning report tonight.
Hi. National Night Out tonight, rain or shine. We're going for it. That's what the deputies wanted to do, and so it's just too hard to reschedule fire, EMS, deputies, and all the things. We did it last year. This year, they've decided we're going to pray to the rain gods to stay away. A little bit of rain's okay. It's not going to hurt anyone. We've put on social, bring your umbrellas and your slickers and come on out and have some fun with us. I'm more worried about lightning and things like that, but we'll have to take shelter in the barn if that's happening, and hopefully it doesn't.
That'll be memorable.
I mean, it sure will. So, yeah, no, we're really excited. I'm going to be spending a lot of time today running around getting food and things for it. I can't really buy that stuff in advance, but the Public Works guys are going to head to Firethorn today and pick up the grill that they're letting us borrow. And really, honestly, guys, I'm just going to be prepared on the fly to kind of make some decisions about shifting things around, relying on Matt and his expertise and his team. But like, we might relocate the grill to the back side of the barn, under the cover if it's raining on you guys, and might even have to. Normally, people just kind of get their food and they sit around the park, or they use the picnic tables. If it's raining, we may have to set some tables up inside. So we're just going to play it by ear and watch the weather and be, what's the word? Flexible and positive at the same time. And positive. Yeah, we'll make it work. I mean, it is what it is. It's going to be fine. So, yeah, the event starts at 5. We're asking all vendors and everybody to be ready to go by 4:30, just in case we have some folks arriving early. I'm trying to overbuy this year, because I'd rather have too much than have to run to Publix in the middle of it all, which we've had to do in previous years.
I think you did 3 times last year.
The
So,
only danger that with that this year is if it's raining, we might not have a lot of turn.
I know, so that's the conundrum. But we're gonna overbuy, you know, we can always return unopened packages of hot dogs or buns that we don't need. So I'd rather buy too much and have to return some stuff than not have enough. So that's kind of my goal for today. And then after that, the next things we have coming up is,
Just a quick question.
sorry, go ahead.
2 things on tonight's event. So we do have is it Young Men's Service League? Will they be the primary
Yeah, we have
volunteer?
10 volunteers coming from them, between them and the moms.
Okay,
So they're
you
gonna
said
be
10?
serving residents again,
10 of them?
10 total, yeah.
Probably good, because sometimes they've had almost more than
Oh,
the
yeah,
participants. I mean,
there'll be like 3 guys standing, do you have one?
right, nothing wrong with too many volunteers,
No,
but
there's
that probably
nothing
sounds like a better balance than.
Yeah, we talked about that. If we have too many, some of them might go over and just keep an eye on the bounce house and make sure the kids aren't getting a little too wild and crazy. So we'll put them to work.
Okay,
And some of them are also, like, if Public Works has trash they want them to go around and pick up or anything, I mean, they're happy to do whatever they can. So they don't all necessarily have to be standing at that table.
and then I know, of course, PRG is planning to be there too. We had talked a bit about having a table set up around.
Yeah, we have a
PRG.
table for PRG, we have a table for Union County Board of Elections, CRTPO will be there, Union County GOP will be there. Habitat Builders will have a table.
Okay.
The sheriff's deputies will have multiple tables.
Okay,
So
great.
we'll have a face painter, bounce house, DJ, all the typical stuff
Are the tables in the barn or outside?
in the barn.
That changes my,
Yeah, last year, the deputies had their swag table outside, but that's because the weather was nice. That's probably going to be inside this year, so.
that's cool. And are we gonna post on social media that lots of this is inside? All that's already happened. Good.
Yeah, that already happened, so, yeah.
Because that would make me come out more likely if I thought there was stuff going on in the barn.
Yeah. Any other questions for me about tonight?
What time do you need us there?
I would say 4:30-ish.
Okay, I'll probably be there before that to set up Habitat Village table, and then I'll be yours.
Okay, perfect. And then next things after that is just going to be, we have a car show, but again, those are like self-sufficient. They don't really require much from me. I know Matt's team is involved. Then we have the ribbon cutting the next weekend.
All right?
What's that?
When
last
is the car
as
show
well.
again?
What time
The
is
car show is the 17th of September. It's actually a British car show this time, so it's different than what we've had in the past.
19th,
Um,
September 19th, Saturday.
That's the night, are you sure? Yeah, 19th, thank you. And then 1 week,
Of this month,
September 19th.
September 19th, yeah.
Yeah, that's a Saturday, okay.
Yeah, we already had the car show for, the most recent one was last month, it was in July. So the next one is this British car show, which is in September on the 19th. And then 1 week later is our ribbon cutting here for Houston Ross Park. And then we go straight into, we're supposed to technically have another car show in October potentially, and then it's trick or treat and Arbor Day. So busy.
Trick or treat before the Arbor Day or no? Because it's
It's
after.
the night before.
Okay.
Yeah, so
The
it happens on
23rd.
Friday night, and then Arbor Day is the next day. So, I know Deb, we've already discussed starting to work on vendors for trick or treat. And then, I'm gonna put it on the next agenda for us to have a conversation about the tree lighting. There has been talk about making it like a Christmas vendor market. I think we need to put some conversations and some thought around that. I know, Mayor Pro Tem had offered to spearhead that herself if she had to, because I don't necessarily have the capacity, and I don't know if we'll have someone in place. I'm really gonna get with Lehman when he gets back from vacation that I can't, I need him to prioritize getting a job description together for this role and getting it posted and potentially getting someone hired, because I honestly don't see the point if by the time we hire this person, I will have done 90% of the work for all of our events for this calendar year. It's almost like, what's the point? What are they gonna do until spring, you know? So I wanna get them in here sooner rather than later. But yeah, so that's gonna be a priority of mine. But I'm gonna put it on our agenda, because I do think we need to discuss some things, like, we're not gonna be able to put all the vendors in the barn, or maybe we do, and we move the tree and the actual event outside, and the vendors are in the barn, or are the vendors outside and we continue to do what we do in the barn, but then it could be a cold night for those vendors. It will really feel like a Christmas market, but it's gonna be chilly, and we need to prepare for that sometimes.
We've had all the weathers.
All the weathers.
weathers.
Hot, we've had freezing, so you just don't know what you're going to get.
And just as an update, normally it's the village manager that would be hiring for that role and so forth. We have an interim manager, but we have made some pretty good progress in terms of initial interviews occurring, things
for the
like that.
manager, not
For the actual manager's role. So we're getting ready to move forward with some next steps on that. And, hopefully, once we get that into place, and then some of the other dominoes also, can help to fall after that.
Yeah, but we should be able to use the interim to just at least get the job description and get it posted and start getting, because we have to post it for a certain period of time and open it up for an application window. So hopefully that part can happen. And then, ideally, the new village manager would be the one to hire that person. So that's the goal. Any questions for me about anything? Any
Jill,
questions about the ribbon cutting or anything?
Well, you've done a tremendous amount, and obviously PRG is here to help support the village too. So, and we know, not just showing up for these events, but you talk about these planning things. If there's something real specific, and we amongst ourselves can talk about who may want to step in and maybe help with some more of the planning, or even kind of evaluating the logistics for the Christmas market. So don't feel like you're alone. So most certainly, if it helps delegate, we've got folks here who can at least.
Thank you. I know Deb's already offered to help with vendors for the trick or treat, and the good news is we've done this for a few years, so we have a good lead list of the past attendees. So we'll reach out to them first and invite them to come back, and then it's just a matter of promoting it. And we probably should set a goal for how many vendors we want at trick or treat, and it's nice for us to have a number, but then really we should be bringing Public Works into that discussion, because they're the ones that have to figure out where to space them all on the lawn. And last year, we had a pretty good number that we were able to just go all the way around the sort of the tree line and the outer edge. Matt was sort of saying if we were to try to increase, we would possibly have to snake vendors like this. So we had some in the middle of the lawn as well, but make it like a little, right? Isn't that what you said? So it's just something to think about. If we want to go big and we want to get more, then we can certainly do that. We just have to sort of think about that and make sure that we get with Public Works to make it work properly.
Okay. But yeah,
So.
just an example of that, or even even some of the legwork too. I know today you're saying you're running around. I mean, again, myself can volunteer, others, as you think about that, or as Halloween comes up, because you are wearing multiple hats, and we do have some capacity in this group to, many folks already put time in, but just to know that, feel free to reach out and ask. Folks
I will, thank you. Luckily, the Public Works staff is awesome, and it's obviously, Tyler's not here. Last year, he was big enough to go and grab, 10 cases of water and ice and all the things. So Public Works will be helping with that today, thank God, because that's a lot for me. I can go get the hot dogs and the buns and the cookies and the chips, but the water is so. And they're going to drag out the big coolers and fill them with ice and help out with that. So, but no, thank you for the offer. I appreciate that. And we'll definitely take you up on that for Trick or Treat or any other event that we have.
And you mentioned Houston Ross, that date, just to confirm, because last month we were talking about potentially looking at dates, just to make sure everyone's aware we are sticking with the 26th, yes, as the opening ribbon cutting for Houston Ross Park. 9/26, that's Saturday afternoon. Again, can you just reiterate the times we have that out
So
there?
it's 1 to 3. We'll have vendors here and set up by 12:30, DJ with the microphone, and we have a coffee cart person coming and a slushy person coming, and there'll be some food. Charcuterie vendors, there'll be some things.
And by vendors, we meaning we're provided, it's not to purchase, it's to be had, correct?
Yes, we are, it's a good question. I don't really have a budget for this event, but I did, obviously I was purchasing all of the food and all of that and the slushies. I'm pretty sure I'm paying for the coffee too. Yeah, I think I'm paying for everything, yeah. We'll pay for everything. I'm not expecting a huge turnout, so we can absorb it.
Okay, so.
I'll do what I can with the coffee. I'll do what I can drinking it.
Listen, I picked a really great fall menu for that coffee cart too. It's cool. I'll show you what it is. I'll send it to you.
And then 1 to 3, and then we'll have maybe next month, we'll have one more meeting. Is there like a time frame too? So I assume at X time, you know, is Mayor Barber speaking, and who are the presenters of this too? Do we have a idea?
Yeah,
on how that's
I
gonna
had a
flow?
potential program outlined that I thought I already shared with you guys. Maybe I didn't, but I thought I did. But yeah, I mean, that was sort of back when we weren't 100% sure who was running point on the event. So maybe I'll be prepared to share that with you guys at your September 1st or whatever date that is, that meeting.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, pretty much it's just opening remarks, and the biggest thing is, I don't have direct access to the descendants, so I don't know what I don't know. I don't know if they want microphone time. I don't know if they have a speech
We had
prepared,
talked
so.
about that, so I don't know, we need to work with Angel because she's interfacing with them as well as the
Yeah.
Historical Society.
But I've built in time for that. I
Yes.
want to make sure that if any of them have comments or they have prepared statements, that they can speak as well. So, and if in the absence of that, there's an opportunity for Angel or someone on council to get up and say something. And then the actual cutting and then just music and refreshments after that, so.
Just letting you guys know, we're a little bit over time.
Okay, thank you. But I'm gonna, because you spoke, I thought you were gonna jump in and say the signs are ready. Do we have a timeline on updates for those?
I've not
posts?
heard from the vendor yet.
Okay, but they will, I mean, obviously, between now and the 26th, they'll be in place before.
That's the goal, is
Gotta check with them still.
to have them all installed by the ribbon cutting.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Thank you, Austin, for the reminder in time. All right, we'll see you tonight. We'll be
This afternoon.
in the
What do you mean
afternoon. Tonight, oh, I was gonna come around 10 when we're cleaning up. No, I'm just kidding.
That would be very happy.
All right,
for you
let's,
to be there.
last up is the village, not last up, but the village council report, John.
All right, well, a couple of things, some that we've already touched on. As Hunter reported on the Heritage at Marvin Trail, part of our consent agenda was the approval of Blue Ridge Trail Works to go ahead and, we got that RFP submitted and approved now, so they're ready to move forward with that. The other item that we discussed in depth is the sport court grant. And, essentially Jill did a great job interfacing with the Fitness Foundation, and we did receive this $35,000 grant. The discussion last night was whether about accepting it. In the end, that vote failed 3-2. And it wasn't so much that it failed because nobody thinks it's a good idea. Just the way that kind of the calendar is rolled out, and after our discussion last month, council last night was kind of faced with, we've got 60 days, to essentially provide them a purchase order for a good chunk of the equipment that would be our match to the $35,000. But there was a lot of conversation around whether or not, right in front of Publix there, one council member had some concerns. There's two fitness, membership clubs that are right in that plaza, how it could potentially affect them. And there were conversations, well, it could be good and it could be bad. They might actually utilize it, or something like that. So there were some concerns around that. I did ask the question because I didn't know if we had considered it, and we hadn't really yet. Might it be a better spot where the Heritage Park that we're wondering, 2.5 acres there, is that something, potentially? No parking. One thing that we did, kind of a separate issue. So in the end, and even one of the council members that said, no, we're not really prepared for this. And, that's why I thought it important when we were having those conversations about public-private partnerships, things like that. When we have opportunities like this or other things, it's important that we're ready for them sometimes, it doesn't feel great when, yay, we got $35,000, but no, we're not going to take advantage of that time.
Yeah, John, just quick on that. Was it a matching, and I assume, what was the overall price? Was
So
the village gonna have to kick in?
it would have been matching, but then overall, even if we could get some sponsorships or other people to come in on it, the total cost was going to be about $205,000.
Okay, which we don't have.
And that we don't have budgeted and stuff. So, yes, there were other areas that Jill could say, well, we might be able to pull from this, but with having to make that initial investment within the next 60 days of our match of $35,000 for equipment that then it's very hard to kind of back away from if we can't put it all together. And it doesn't preclude us from looking for this grant again
Right.
or looking for other grants and things like that. But I think it brings up an important point too about being prepared. I know like the Heritage Park, we've wondered what do we do with that? We really do want to start to have more of a vision of what we want to have available for some of these things. And it doesn't need to be one vision, it could be multiple, but what are the acceptable uses for these things? When we do have an opportunity, bang, we're ready and we at least have some thought already baked into it. So, so we didn't end up taking the grant for the sport court. Many did think it was a very good idea. Some had concerns about the location. Some had concerns about the timing. But it is something that they would support in the future. It's just a not now thing, okay? We did also discuss, and this is for, kind of the benefit of Village Hall here, but also for the Heritage and District in general, and you were just talking about parking. We did have a conversation, and we are moving forward to have discussions about partnering with ZEPSA as he develops Marvin Grove, which will be next door. That kind of
Marvin Grove on
in the
Newtown?
front part of the woods here, we still own a .46 acre piece of property that's not part of the Village Hall Park right now. But if it were to be developed in conjunction with what he's doing, because if you've been back there, the elevations get all kind of wonky and, there's stormwater runoff that gets directed one way or the other based upon the lay of the land. And the goals with doing this would be to do a couple of things. While we're disturbing a lot of that land already, as ZEPSA has the right to do to develop their project, essentially that little parcel would become landlocked forever, because we wouldn't be able to get another kind of cut off the roundabout or anything like that. So, the discussion was around, we could increase, parking availability for when we have larger meetings and stuff, which we've run into here at Village Hall already, where people are parking out on the street and the road and stuff like that. So we would be able to improve parking for us. It would be shared parking like all is in the Heritage District, and with a new state ordinance that came out, we can't require minimum parking for any future commercial projects. They just don't allow us to do that anymore. So any parking that is available is kind of take it when you can get it at this point, because we can't force, developers to add that in the future. And then also from the stormwater perspective, there's some things that can be done to take that natural flow right now where it's currently kind of going down and sometimes adversely affecting folks like in the preserve and things like that. Speaking with Hunter, there's things that we may be able to do that can help alleviate that, utilizing the retention pond that the Marvin Grove is already kind of looking at incorporating there anyway. So we did talk about it being a pervious type surface if we were to do something like that. We did talk about wanting to keep, of course, as many larger trees and kind of any buffering around it that we would be able to do. So that, in speaking even for whatever we do end up doing with the Heritage Park, if it were fitness or something else, people would at least have a short walk with some parking available. So
That parking would also be, I guess, picturing you would then walk down the Marvin Loop that cuts through the park, right? I mean, that's the
correct.
logical way to get to
And we'll
the building
probably,
here.
because they're adjacent to each other, we probably will have a direct connection from that parking lot into
That's great.
Houston Ross
'Cause you
Park.
could also potentially,
Yeah.
when the Marvin Loop goes around, park there if you wanted to get on the loop.
Correct.
Without having to park in the Village Hall.
Yeah.
Okay. So what you're saying, John, is when that's developed, it sounds like the village is going to
Well,
partner.
we,
or that's
we,
a
we
discussion.
we directed staff to work with ZEPSA
Okay.
because they were kind of getting ready to move forward with their final construction documents.
Okay.
And if they kind of did that, you can imagine, a lot of times that they'll get their elevations and then right at the property line, it could be like an 8-foot drop or, something that would make it far more expensive and complicated to ever do anything in the future.
So we would still have to manage that. It's not there, he's not going to develop that parking lot for us.
Well,
the discussion.
we may, it could, the ownership will probably lie with us because that is the easiest way. We wouldn't want to be providing just free, something free to a private developer. There are guardrails around that in state statutes. But to coordinate with them on a project is something that's totally doable.
Yes.
And the access, that, it would be shared access, just like everything is for the Heritage District.
But
per
it would
se.
also be shared access for his property too, right?
Correct, correct, yep.
Okay.
And then the parking, the last thing is just something that we kind of touched on. Jill brought this up from a finance perspective, but we have had over the years, and we haven't used it because we've never had the right opportunity, 250,000, 250 in the land acquisition?
350.
$350,000 in a land acquisition. And, PRG in the past has talked about, well, if a property, and there's not that many properties available around Marvin these days, especially even at $350,000, it's a pretty small property. But if in the event something, maybe it's between us and Waxhaw, us and Weddington, if something came up, that could be good seed money at least for potentially acquiring. We've talked about youth sport leagues or something like that, and if it would ever make sense to partner with another municipality or something like that. So we did have a conversation around that. Because we do have other competing needs. So we have this in the budget each year. We haven't used it, so we've kind of rolled it over. I hope I'm portraying everything properly here, Jill. But I think council by and large, understands that. If there are other priorities like roads or something where we definitely need the money, we could always reallocate those funds
It's
to
allocated
to another
today to
area.
parks, to park acquisition?
It's not allocated, it's
Land.
allocated to land acquisition,
That could be
whether
a-
Public Works might need something,
Okay,
or
Greenway, it's not just limited to parks.
if we had to pay for part of land acquisition for a roundabout, or, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's really going to depend on council priorities and consensus, and, this sort of came up in our strategy funding call when we were looking at what funding pathways we might have for the fitness court. And I know there are some council members that feel like, just because we need money for roads, they're not necessarily really pro, let's drain every other account and move everything to roads. Like, they want to make sure, because we have quite a substantial amount in greenways and trails, for instance, that we don't necessarily have a lot of trail projects anymore that money would go to. So, but the idea being, well, if it's already there and it's already been appropriated for Parks and Recs, let's leave it in Parks and Recs and try to spend it in that area. But they can decide at any time to reallocate funds through a consensus. And so we are going to talk about these funds a little bit more in January at the retreat and kind of figure out what makes most sense, where to shuffle things around. But that's why I'm glad that we will have a chance to have a conversation in the fall as we're preparing the CIP for what we want to see happen, what you all want to see happen in Parks and Recreation for next fiscal year, so that I can advocate for that and advocate for those funds to stay in Parks and Rec for those various projects if council agrees and approves them in the CIP.
And it kind of makes sense, we're getting the publication of the new Parks and Greenway plan, right? So
Yeah.
we've got the recommendations there, so that's to follow. Okay.
Perfect
But
timing.
That's pretty much it for me. I just wanted
Well,
to
thank you,
keep
John.
you, and that's more of a tangential one, but because we've had those conversations about land acquisition, public-private, partnerships and things, and even kind of like what Tom was talking about today, you know. It's about being prepared. If we don't have a land acquisition fund, then an opportunity may pass you by just because you're not prepared for it either, you know, so.
Yeah, because then I would have to potentially wait for a council meeting to get approval to move money out of unassigned fund balance into land acquisition, and then, you know, that delays everything. So, but good news is council is, you know, as John said, they are not saying no to the fitness court. They actually are very intrigued by it. It's just, let's take some time and let's figure out, maybe we delay a couple years because the Heritage Pocket Park is a better choice. And I know some of them want it to be centrally located to that downtown area. Some of them want it to be walkable or bikeable. But yes, parking is going to be a concern, and some people are going to want to drive to that amenity and may not be able to. So we'll keep fleshing that out, but it's going to become a CIP project that will get prioritized and/or funded as we're ready to move forward.
That's it. Thanks, John. Good update.
Thank you.
Last up, we have a review of action items. Austin?
You guys will have the public-private partnerships back on your September agenda. Taking the Trailhead Science to council for their work session. Jill is going to have a discussion for the tree lighting on the next meeting in September. And I have actually already followed up with a sign vendor for Houston Ross Park. I'm just waiting to hear back.
Okay. And, okay, so our motions go into your action items, like the motion we made on the signage, that's a.
Motion? I'm
No,
sorry?
no, we approved the signage to go to council. That's not an action item, right? Because it's.
No, I'm taking it, I'm just letting you know, I'm taking that to council at the
Gotcha.
next meeting.
Okay, great. And then any ongoing action items on the list?
Nothing's urgent on there. We got some
Gotcha.
long-standing ones, but they're
Okay,
more important things.
all righty. Last up is our board member comments. Anyone have anything to make comment on? Deb?
I have a comment. So Stroll Firethorn is a publication.
I'm sorry?
It's called Stroll Firethorn. It's a publication that gets mailed at Firethorn. And they would like to start featuring the village's events in their publication. They can also share it on their social media as well if you're interested. But they would like photos.
We don't have photographers at our events, so it's just whatever photos.
Whatever
staff
we
captures.
take. Okay.
I don't have.
Yeah, they haven't done a good job is the long and short of it. Like in the past, we've taken pictures, but no one has had time after these events to what are we
Organize
doing with them? Who has them? Where are we storing them? It's something that we'd like to change moving forward. Because,
I've taken them too.
yeah, I have them. I have sent them to people in the past, but then sometimes Pooley me will she would use them to do like a graphic to put on social or a newsletter, but then whatever happened with the originals after that, I'm not really sure. But I thought about going through my
Maybe
files.
that's something our new project manager can
Yeah,
track.
for sure, yeah. And it's a fun volunteer opportunity when people are like, how can I help? I'm like, run around and take pictures and then give them to us after.
That's a good idea, maybe something through the high school as well. But so Deb, I think the main thing you're saying is the Firethorn would be willing to support publishing our events. Is that
So
the main ask, or?
It's not through Firethorn,
Not
it's
Firethorn,
not,
but whatever this stroll,
right,
okay.
right.
So you would just need to get the events calendars like Austin publishes, and then you would just relay it to,
And it would just be more information sharing within the community, another avenue.
Great.
so.
all righty. Thanks, Deb. Anyone else have comments for today? All right. Then with that, we will adjourn today's meeting. Look forward to seeing everyone this evening. Making a motion. I'll make a motion. I'm sorry. Just one second. We'll look forward to seeing everyone tonight at the night out, rain or shine, and making a motion to adjourn today's meeting at 10:53. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.